Have you ever wanted to figure out what type of metal something is? Well, that's what today's video is going to be about. I'm going to walk you guys through all the different things that I use and the different methods that I use to figure out what type of metal you have, whether it's copper or brass or aluminum or lead or zinc, etc. And at the end of the video, I have a nice surprise for you guys, and it should help you guys out for trying to do this on your own. But today I'm going to give you a visual demonstration on how I sort all of my different metals from scrapping and then process it and melt it down into my projects. So one thing you're definitely going to want to pick up is some of this ZEP root killer. I just picked this up at Home Depot, and basically all this is copper sulfate. You can see down here in the active ingredients, copper sulfate, pentahydrate, which the pentahydrate just means it's got 5 water molecules attached to it, 99%. And then other ingredients, 1%. So this is basically just pure copper sulfate. And that's all it looks like. It's just a blue crystal. But all I do is I just take some of those blue crystals and I mix it in like an eyedropper bottle like this. I kind of just rigged it up myself. And I just mix it with some water to help preserve some of it. The other two things you're going to want are a propane torch, such as this, and a file or something just to make a scratch in the metal that you're trying to test. The first thing you're always going to want to check is just magnetism. So you can see I picked that up fairly easy because I know this is steel, and I have some very strong neodymium magnets. These are very good for testing because they're so powerful, but you have to be a little bit careful with them because they can pinch you. Now some steel can actually trick you. Now this is like a type of stainless steel, and you would think, oh well, it's steel, it's magnetic. Well, it's actually not. It's very, very faintly magnetic if you can really hold it close and get a feel for it, but you wouldn't know it unless you knew what you were looking for already. Now I went ahead and I made a mark on here with an angle grinder. Another way you can check for steel is whether or not it sparks. So if you hit this with an angle grinder, it should spark. Now you notice how this did not spark. So this is part of the reason why stainless steel is kind of a pain to actually identify, because sometimes it's not magnetic, sometimes it is, sometimes it sparks, sometimes it doesn't, and it can really be difficult sometimes for an inexperienced person. But with that ZEP root killer, you could see I added a little bit here and it kind of darkened it. It's not fully black, it's kind of like just darkened. It looks black on camera, but it's not all the way black. It's just slightly darkened. And another way you can identify certain steels is sometimes certain steels rust. If it's stainless steel, obviously it's not supposed to rust. But other ways you can identify steel is by weight. But the real one that gave this part away to me was that it was slightly magnetic. So I could tell easily by that it was definitely steel. And also you could see all these pitted holes on here. That's a classic identifier of stainless steel as well. Next up on our list, we have aluminum. So I have two different types of aluminum here. I have a cast aluminum right here. You can see the grain structure is pretty coarse and rough looking. And I made a cut inside of this one. Might be a little hard to see. You can see right there, it's just like fairly smooth. It's all uniform. But this is extruded aluminum. I actually got this from an old amplifier, and I made a video on how I tore this apart and everything, so if you wanted to check that video out, definitely do. But this is extruded, and I can tell because it looks like it was put through a churro machine, and that's the way I like to describe it, is if you imagine this piece like this getting pushed through a die, it makes all those grooves just very consistent, the same distance apart. It's very symmetrical. If I'll put up a clip here too, but cast aluminum is very easy to break. So a lot of cast things are easy to break, like die cast, which is mostly zinc, cast aluminum, cast iron. You can just hit it with a hammer a few times and it should shatter apart. This was actually an old intake manifold from a truck, and I just shattered it with a sledgehammer. So very easy to break. Extruded aluminum, it just bends, and you're basically never gonna break it unless you just repeatedly bend it back and forth. But I wanna go ahead and go over a few things. So First of all, aluminum is very, very light. It's extremely light. It should not feel dense at all. You should be able to just bounce it up and down, even with a large chunk like this. Just very, very light. If this was steel, it'd actually be pretty heavy. But how I test for aluminum also to make sure it's not like zinc or something, if it's like a weird size that it's hard to tell the density, I'll just make a scratch like that. Take some of the root killer. And when you place it on there, aluminum should not have a reaction at all. So it'll stay silver, it won't bubble, it'll just stay the same as it's always stayed, because aluminum does not like to react with copper sulfate. So that'll stay that nice silver color. Doesn't matter if it's extruded either. I can actually see it a bit better with the extruded. See, no color change, nothing, doesn't do anything. Now magnesium, on the other hand, is very similar to aluminum in nature. It is definitely lighter. It feels way, way lighter. I can just bounce this big chunk of magnesium easily in my hand. It's not pure magnesium, it is a magnesium alloy, but it is mostly magnesium. And so other than the way you can separate this from the other metals, if we make a scratch right here, and put some of that root killer on. If you watch very, very carefully, you can see some bubbles forming. I know it's pretty hard to see, but when I'm looking at it up close, I can see lots of bubbles forming. And that's how I can tell that this is magnesium. Also because it has magnesium right there. Now the next closest one that you're going to encounter is zinc. This can be called all sorts of things like die cast. I've heard tons of different names for this, but I just call it zinc. There's Zamac, there's other alloys like ICAST, like ZA12. But the way you're gonna wanna test for this, and this is the main reason why you get that root killer, is for zinc. Now if I make a scratch in this zinc, and then put the root killer on, boom, it's like instantly black. It reacts very, very rapidly with anything with zinc in it, and this is actually the same stuff that I use to add the patina on my ZA12 casting statues. Other than the root killer, it is also heavier, so this is much denser than aluminum, and it's also a little bit harder. Zinc is a little bit harder than aluminum, so when you scratch the zinc, it should have a little bit more resistance to it. You shouldn't be able to scratch it as easy. So those are a few different ways. Also, zinc has a much lower melting temperature than all the other ones. Zinc will melt with just a simple blowtorch, and aluminum will too if you give it enough time. But with a big chunk like this, I can easily just melt this down with a blowtorch. So that's another very good indicator. Just blast it for a minute or so and it should melt down really easy. It's very good for beginners to cast with because of that low melting temperature, low safety risk, and it flows very well. Zinc is a very good metal to add in for alloys for casting, which will be another video that I'll go over. This is a ZA12 statue that I cast, and it's the same solution that I used to darken this and add the patina on it, and just buff it with a buffing wheel and some Scotch-Brite to bring out the highlights, and I think it turned out really good. ZA12, or just zinc in general, is very good for casting. It definitely captures a lot of detail. I mean, just look at the robe. Anyways, moving on. So you might have taken this out at some point if you're into scrapping and been like, oh my god, I just got a huge chunk of copper. But you were fooled. If you make a scratch, you can see immediately that it's silver. So I don't even need to test this because I immediately know that it's aluminum wire. This is not copper, and it's worth infinitely less because of that, and I'm sad. But just to show you guys anyways, a little bit of the solution here, and nothing happens because it's aluminum. I'm telling you, this root killer stuff, this copper sulfate, is amazing for figuring out what is what. Piggybacking off of that a little bit, I have some actual copper wire here, some actual really nice thick copper wire. If I make a scratch into that, it'll be hard to tell because it's already next to two orange pieces. I'll try to make it bigger here. Copper is also kind of soft, but you can see it's got a really nice orange color. You can immediately tell it's copper. And then something like this, you might think, oh, that's aluminum or steel. Some people will get fooled, But what this actually is tin coated copper. So if I make a scratch on this, you can see some of that nice orange color coming through. I'll try to bring it out a little bit more. So you can see the orange coming through right there. Had trouble getting the camera to focus on this. And not only is this copper sulfate really good for figuring out which metal's which, but it's also good for someone like me who's partially colorblind. So if you can't exactly tell what the color is, you can add a little bit of this on there and it will actually darken the color more. So you can see how much more orange it already looks. It just makes that color contrast a little bit more. And if I do it on the copper here, you can see how much more reflective it is, and you can immediately tell that orange copper color. Next up on the list, we have brass. So I have a few different forms of brass here. Usually what you'll find it in is like plumbing or connectors for electrical wires. I have bullet casings here. Some more plumbing stuff. This is just a faucet. But you can immediately see when this was cut, it's yellow. So brass is yellow. Now brass is technically a type of bronze because all bronzes are copper alloys, and brass is mostly copper with a bunch of zinc put into it. And that zinc is what makes it yellow. So you can see that nice yellow coming through. And again, we'll add some of the copper sulfate just to accent it a little bit more. See how much more yellow that is. Really coming through now. We'll go ahead and just do it with all the other ones. Now another good way to test the different types of metals and stuff is by using the torch. So I've already kind of explained the zinc. The aluminum you can kind of treat the same way, it's just going to take a little bit longer. So if it takes a lot longer, you probably know it's aluminum. And then with copper, another unique thing that this does when it's under a blowtorch is it glows green, which you've probably seen if you've seen some of my casting videos. Here I have a copper pipe with the lowered exposure, and I'm just going to blast it. So another important thing, this is aluminum wire. You can see the cut end here, well maybe you can't see, but the cut end here is like silvery. You can kind of see there. And then this is copper. Obviously the end is orangey, and copper is a lot harder to bend. It holds its shape a lot more. Whereas the aluminum is just like a wet noodle. I can literally just bend it whichever way I want. But also if you hit it with the torch, aluminum just like gets obliterated. It just falls apart rapidly. So I have another piece of copper wire here that's very thin, so it'll melt a little bit quicker so you can actually see it. This is very thin, so it kind of seems like it falls apart, but you can also see that green color. But if you look close, you can see how the ends aren't just falling off. They're like forming into these beads. So if you let that cool down and you look at the end of it, you can see all the tiny little beads that formed on the end, and they're very dark. If it's the aluminum, it'll be silvery and it will just be completely obliterated. So lots of different ways you could separate the copper and the aluminum. Last up we have lead. I don't do a whole lot of stuff with lead yet, not only because I don't have a lot, but also because it's more dangerous to work with. But lead is very, very soft. It's very, very heavy. It's very dense. So you should be able to tell right away if it's lead, because I can like pinch these two pieces together with just my fingers. And then I can also just pry it apart. Very easy. So if I scratch it with a file, it feels like I'm just scratching into like butter. It's very soft. Obviously it's harder than butter, but you get the point. It's very soft. And then if I use some of the copper sulfate, you can see it turns like a lightish gray. It kind of darkens like the zinc does immediately, but it's less pronounced. It's not as black, and it's more along the color of like steel, but this is way easier to separate from zinc and steel. One, because the density, two, mostly because the softness. I feel like you could just cut right through it. It should be very easy to tell. Also, whenever anything else fails, just hit it with the torch. That alone will tell you a lot of information. If it's lead, it'll melt very, very easy. It's got a very low melting point. A lot of people like to melt lead because of that reason, even though it is very toxic. So just be mindful when you're working with lead, but very easy to separate from all of the other metals. If you guys have any idea what I should do with my lead, definitely let me know. I'm open to some ideas. Let me know down in the comments. Just a little trick I used is I found this multi-piece of plumbing that had several different metals on it, and I made some large scratches on it and just let it oxidize over time, and you can see a comparison between the different colors here. So you have like that orangey copper color, yellowy brass color, and then a silvery like aluminum or zinc color up here. Again, if you wanted to quickly test if it's aluminum, just hit it with some of that copper sulfate. Doesn't react, so it's aluminum. But again, since I'm partially colorblind, something like this as a visual indicator is very helpful for me, so I can quickly compare it to another piece that I just scratched and see if it's silver, yellow, or orange. That alone already narrows it down like by 70%. Now we have more of like a red brass kind of color. Now red brass and bronzes are going to be harder to separate from copper, but they're all basically bronzes in the end. So like brass, red brass, yellow brass, bronze, whatever type of thing you're talking about, it's all bronze in the end. It's basically just mostly copper, and that's why they look orangey and red. But the bronzes will look a little bit darker, whereas the red brass will look a little bit lighter. Also, red brass is typically from plumbing, something like this, whereas bronzes are usually found in like marine applications. And also red brass is a little bit softer than bronzes. Bronzes can be actually very tough, especially aluminum bronze. Well, I hope today's video really helped you guys out, and if there's any other different ways that you guys use to identify different metals, definitely let me know down in the comments below, because I'd like to hear what you have to say. And also, if there's any metals or alloys or anything else that you'd like to see, or anything that I forgot to add into the video, definitely let me know that as well. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We do have memberships now available. I'm working towards getting some like early access stuff ready, and also some like membership only stuff where I kind of just showcase a little bit around like the garage and the shed, and just some like extracurricular stuff that I do behind the scenes. If you guys are interested, and if there's anything you want to know for the memberships and anything that you would like to see for the memberships, also definitely let me know down in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.